This is the Lotus Bloom Podcast. And here is your host, Morgan Wylie.
Welcome to another episode of the Lotus Bloom Podcast. I'm your host, Morgan Wylie, and this is the segment, It's Time to Write. I am writing book 5 in the Age of Elandria series, a young adult fantasy, and it's been 2 years since I released the last book in this series, book 4, Fading Light. So in this episode, I wanted to share with you how I begin a new book. And honestly, every book is a little bit different. But for the most part, I do kind of do the same things depending on how close I write them together. But before I begin writing, I need to get myself familiar again with the world. Not that I forgot, but sometimes I just need a refresher in the vibe and the feeling of being in that world and where the characters were at and their attitudes and what was going on. So I reread the book before the one that I'm working on. So in this case, since it's been 2 years, I decided to reread the entire book. Sometimes if it's close enough, I'll just reread like the last half, just enough to get me, like I said, reacquainted with the characters and what was happening at the time and how it ended and where I was going for the future book. So in this case, this was a big book. Book 4 was a beast for me to write because so many things were happening in this book. If you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. The characters end up splitting up and going on different journeys. And so I followed each of their separate journeys and tied them all together for the overall story, which I think worked out really well. But it was a brain cramp to get it right. I ended up doing different outlining strategies than I've ever done before with that book. I used index cards. I had a different color index card for each group. I should look. I have pictures somewhere. So there were maybe 5 different colors happening, and each color had their own story arc, and I placed them in what order in the story where I thought that they would work, and I had a whole spread out on my bed where I was trying to piece in all of the different parts of the story. So anyways, that was that book, but it was a big deal. So I wanted to make sure I knew where everybody was at. Yes, I outline. My outlining process is not super thorough because I need room to move around and to change things and to feel like I have a little bit of freedom in it. But I also really like the structure of having an outline and having just a reminder of where I was going. And especially with a book like that, where there were so many moving parts, I needed to make sure I knew what was going on in each thread and where everybody was at. And it was a lot to remember and keep track of. So I do outline. I didn't used to. I used to be what in the writer's world we refer to as a pantser, which comes from flying by the seat of your pants. And I did start that way. And let me tell you, I don't recommend it anymore because I have learned so much and I wish that I could go back. I mean, I could go back, but that's a lot of work to redo everything with an outline. I feel like it would have saved me so much time. Even understanding as I was learning and growing and evolving as a writer, I think it really would have helped me if I had followed an outline to start with, but I didn't. So this is my tip for the day is I would really recommend, even if you don't feel like you could outline something or would be a strong outliner, at least try to give yourself some structure of, what happens in the beginning, middle, end. Know where you're ending it, know where you're going, and then you can have the freedom to play within the middle of those sections. All that to say, I reread Fading Light, the previous book. I was going to just read the last half, but I decided I needed to read the whole thing to really make sure I was feeling the vibe, I knew where I wanted to start, etc. So I did that. I took some notes, and I am prepping for my outline. Surprise, surprise for me that I had already outlined it and I forgot about it because you guys, 2 years, that was fun. And I'm very grateful for that. So this is my next tip, is that at the end of the book you are finishing, outline as much as you can for the next book, because that is saving me so much time, and I couldn't remember some of the things that I had wanted to do. So I'm so grateful that I did do that outline and I took the time to do that, because now it's going to save me time for writing this book. So there's a little freebie. Also, I am planning to use note cards again. I really enjoyed that process. It helped me. I'm a very visual learner, so it helped me see the story in a different way other than just a bullet point by bullet point outline on a sheet of paper, which I also do. That's where I'm at. I am in the process of outlining. I also have a collection of notes that I have put together whenever I think of an idea, or I thought, I want to end it this way, or I want this to happen for these characters. I keep a section in my phone in the notes where I can just write down anything I'm thinking of. And I also have paper notes. So right now I'm collecting all those notes and I'm making sure that they are all accounted for, that every loose end will have a tie, and I complete all of my thoughts and everything I wanted to happen for these characters and this world during this time. That's where I'm at. I'm outlining, and there's one step closer to beginning to write this book. So for now, it's time to write. I'll talk to you soon.